And now from the headquarters of Telesur in Caracas, Venezuela, this is From the South. And I am Luis de Jesus. Welcome back to the news. We begin right away with our headlines. Venezuela's government denounced Colombian authorities for leaving unprotected its consular office in Bogotá, leading to vandalism and looting. An experimental vaccine against COVID-19 has entered its final phase in the United States and is being tested in at least 30,000 people. And a Lebanon Hezbollah political party denied its fighters staged an infiltration attempt that led to clashes with Israeli forces. And now to the information. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza denounced attacks to the country's consular office in Colombia Monday night after it was left unprotected. These were his words. We denounce that the headquarters of the Venezuelan consulate in Bogotá has been completely vandalized and looted. The Colombian authorities left it without protection, violating the Vienna Conventions on Diplomatic and Consular Relations. The Colombian state must answer, Foreign Minister Arriaza tweeted. And also about Venezuela, Minister of Communication Jorge Rodriguez updated the COVID-19 situation in the Latin American country.
As of this Monday, we have reported 453 new COVID-19 cases of community transmission and 72 imported. Therefore, there are 525 new cases in total in the last 24 hours COVID-19 report.
In Costa Rica, demonstrators took part in a caravan protest in San Jose against austerity policies promoted by the Costa Rican government to contain public spending amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The National Association of Public and Private Employees protested to demand the creation of an emergency fund to help 1 million people who have been unemployed, working short hours, or whose contract has been suspended during the pandemic.
We defend the agricultural sector. We want this government to leave the workers, the working people alone, to stop taking away their rights, to respect the social guarantees.
Our people are unemployed not because they do not want to work, but simply because this government does not know how to rule. They are not capable to govern Costa Rica.
In another subject, Bolivian social and political organizations continue to denounce the Electoral Court's decision to postpone the date of general elections. They are calling on the Supreme Electoral Tribunal to comply with the previous agreement that set September 6th as the date for the country's general elections. Popular and indigenous organizations are preparing to hold protests this week to add to the pressure. Despite this scenario, the president of the Electoral Tribunal, Salvador Romero, has reiterated that October 18th is now the definitive date for the vote. The elections in Bolivia have been postponed 3 times because of the pandemic, as the de facto authorities work to tighten and extend their grip on power. The Movement Towards Socialism Party has denounced that its leaders are being persecuted in order to prevent their participation in the elections. And also, inmates at Bolivia's San Sebastian prison in the western city of Cochabamba protested this Monday over the lack of coronavirus safety measures. The prisoners are demanding government medical assistance given the rapid spread of COVID-19 across the country. The protesters called on authorities to intervene as the number of cases rises in Cochabamba, stressing that they have no access to doctors or medicines. Bolivia has officially reported more than 2,500 COVID-19 deaths and over 69,000 cases among its population of 11 million.
I felt very happy because I had been wanting to come for a long time and I couldn't. The church wasn't open, and now I was very pleased to be able to visit the Blessed Sacrament to talk to him.
We want medical teams. We know there are 3 deaths among us and other people deceased in the police. But until today, we have not received information about the death of the other inmates.
Brazilian activist and consular Marielle Franco would have celebrated her 41st birthday this Monday if she had not been killed in 2018. The consular devoted her life to defend the most vulnerable populations of Brazil and raise her voice against the continued abuse and violence by the police in the favelas. Franco was faithful defender, of the rights of Afro-descended people, women, and LGBTI community. Marielle was consular for the Socialism and Freedom Party and obtained the fifth highest number of votes in Rio de Janeiro in the parliamentary elections of 2016. And Brazilian health workers this Monday urged the National Criminal Court to investigate President Jair Bolsonaro's government for crimes against humanity over its handling of the coronavirus pandemic. The case was presented in The Hague by the coalition of unions, which represent more than 1 million healthcare workers across Brazil. In a statement, the unions accused Bolsonaro's far-right administrations of being criminally negligent in its management of the COVID-19 pandemic, thus risking the lives of healthcare professionals. And the Brazilian Population Secretary for the Americas region of the UNI Global Union Federation, Marcio Monsan, stated that the Bolsonaro administration must be held accountable for its response to the pandemic. And also in Brazil, more than 87,000 COVID-19 deaths have been now reported in that country. According to the Brazilian Health Ministry, over 600 new fatalities were confirmed in the past 24 hours. Over 24,000 new cases have also been reported since Sunday, which means that Brazil has now confirmed more than 2.4 million COVID-19 cases. The most affected state is Sao Paulo, with over 21,000 COVID-19 deaths, followed by Rio de Janeiro with nearly 13,000. And the Caribbean community this Monday began a virtual security conference to analyze issues in the region in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. The conference, the first of its kind to be held by CARICOM member states, will analyze the challenges, implications, and experiences of the COVID-19 pandemic on regional security. The 4-day conference is hosted by the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security under the title Securing Our Community Within the Era of COVID-19 and Beyond. The objective is to identify best practices that can be applied to similar situations in the future. The virtual meeting will bring together experts in the field, government officials, academics, and representatives of the private sector and civil society. The agenda includes debates on peace, security, and development criminality, and also organized crimes, cybersecurity, borders, gender violence, and more. Prime Minister of Barbados, Maya Motley, accepted a donation of essential medical supplies for Caribbean community members from the World Health Organization and the JACMA Foundation. Motley stated that the surgical and N5 mask would greatly assist Caribbean governments in protecting their frontline workers.
What is important is that we not only have access, which we didn't as a small region as CARICOM on our own, but that we are also looking to be able to procure at prices that are usually only available for much larger countries and populations. And therefore, a St. Kitts with 40,000 people will have the same access as a Nigeria with 200 million people. And that is the fundamental policy space that we've negotiated to make a difference to the people of the region.
And also in Barbados, former Prime Minister Owen Seymour Arthur passed away this Monday at the age of 70. Seymour Arthur, who served as Barbados' 5th Prime Minister, was hospitalized in mid-July with heart complications. The former Prime Minister led the country for an unprecedented 3 consecutive terms from 1994 to 2008, having served as a Member of Parliament from 1984 to 2013. According to Barbadian authorities, a period of national mourning will be observed for 3 days with the national flag flown at half-mast. And we'll go now to a short break. Follow us in Twitter at Telesur English and Luis Telesur. We'll be right back. We are back in the United States. The implementation of an experimental vaccine began on Monday in at least 30,000 people. The vaccine developed by the National Institutes of Health and Mother Inc. entered today its final phase by providing real or false doses to patients in order to evaluate the results. Several scientists working on the vaccine assure that it will take months to obtain reliable results. And even after that time, there is no guarantee it will be effective.
We will achieve a victory over the virus by unleashing America's scientific genius, which is what it is. I'm therefore proud to announce that this morning, the Moderna vaccine has officially entered phase 3 already, and that's phase 3 clinical trials, the final stage before approval.
And a group of mayors from the United States asked Congress in a letter to prohibit the deployment of federal agents in several states without the consent of local authorities. The letter was signed by the mayors of Chicago, Seattle, Portland, Albuquerque, Washington, and Kansas City, who seek to stop the sending of federal agents to their cities to suppress protests against racism in those towns. The Trump administration has deployed over the past days more than 700 federal agents in several cities around the country where mobilizations continue in demand for social equality. And the government of the United Kingdom has imposed a 14-day quarantine on travelers from Spain. The new restrictive measure in the framework of prevention of new COVID-19 contagions addresses mainly travelers returning to the UK from Spain who are now asked to self-isolate for 14 days before their return. If travelers fail to comply with the new measure, they could be fined up to £1,000.
The fact that the United Kingdom demands a quarantine for anyone coming from Spain is, in a way, in our favor, because it discourages people from coming from the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is a country which, in principle, right now with the data we have available, seems to be doing well. It does not mean that it has evolved very well throughout the epidemic, but the truth is that right now it seems to be evolving well. It is true that not all parts of the United Kingdom are in the same situation, just as not all parts of Spain are in the same situation.
Wildfires that began in southeastern France on Sunday have continued to extend throughout the Gironde region. About 200 firefighters along with air tankers have attended to combat the forest blaze that rages across nearly 200 hectares of pine trees of Le Toussaint. The fire has grown to be this year's largest in the area. However, it has not reached any populated sectors.
We have 250 hectares of small seedlings, burnt bushes, 250 hectares for a fire that started in the middle of the afternoon. We have 3 major fronts. We have 2 with exposure of the population, so we can carry out preventative evacuations because of the smoke, not because of the immediate fire risk.
Chinese authorities on Monday morning entered the U.S. consulate in Chengdu after ordering the mission to close late last week in response to a U.S. order to force the closure of Beijing's consulate in Houston.
The general in Chengdu was closed. Chinese authorities then entered through the front entrance and took it over. Demanding the closure of the U.S. consulate in Chengdu and taking over the premises is China's legitimate and necessary response to the unjustified U.S. act of closing Chinese consulate in Houston and breaking into the compound. What China has done conforms to international law, the basic rule of international relations and diplomatic practices. The current situation of China-U.S. relations is not what China wants to see, and U.S. is responsible for all this. We once again urge the U.S. to correct its wrong decisions immediately and create necessary conditions to bring the bilateral relationship back on track.
The General Director of the World Health Organization has noted that nearly 60 million coronavirus cases have now been reported to the UN Health Agency, as well as more than 600,000 deaths worldwide. On Thursday, the WHO director will convene the organization's emergency committee as a part of a procedural requirement 6 months after the declaration of a public health emergency of international concern. The Director General stressed that strong political leadership, education to raise awareness of the risk, increased testing, hygiene, and physical distancing measures have been proven effective in several countries that have carefully followed guidelines to fight the virus.
COVID-19 has changed our world. It has brought people, communities, and nations together and driven them apart. It has shown what humans are capable of, both positively and negatively. We have learned an enormous amount, and we're still learning. But although our world has changed, the fundamental pillars of the response have not. As we mark 6 months since the declaration of the global health emergency, the COVID-19 pandemic is illustrating that health is not a reward for development. It's the foundation of social, economic, and political stability. We are not prisoners of the pandemic. Every single one of us can make a difference. The future is in our hands.
Executive Director of Emergencies, and Dr. Maria Van.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. In Lebanon, Hezbollah, a political party, denied its fighters staged an infiltration attempt that led to clashes with Israeli forces on Monday, calling the Israeli account a move to create false victories. The Lebanese organization also said it will take actions for an army force member killed in a suspected Israeli airstrike in Syria last week, saying a response against Israel was coming for sure. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu disputed the armed group's denial of any border incident, adding Hezbollah should know that it is playing with fire. But the political party denied it carried out a raid over the southern border, saying the incident was from the Israeli side. And meanwhile, on Tuesday, the Israeli army shelled the southern Lebanese border towns of Habarije and Al-Mari in response to clashes. No casualties were reported. (1,282 Afghan civilians have been killed due to armed conflicts in the country in 2020, said a report from the United Nations mission in Afghanistan. UNAMA also reported another 2,176 people wounded in the same period. The figures include 340 children killed and another 727 injured. The UN Chief's Special Representative for Afghanistan has made a call to stop the fighting that continues inflicting terrible harm to civilians. He also highlighted that Afghanistan and the Taliban have a historic opportunity to come on together at the negotiating table for peace talks. And also in Afghanistan, the country's Ministry of Public Health reported 106 new confirmed COVID-19 cases in the last daily report. The ministry also confirmed 10 new deaths, amounting a total of 36,263 cases of infection and 1,269 deaths by the novel coronavirus. Out of the total people infected, 25,198 have recovered. India Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday officially opened 3 new COVID-19 testing facilities in New Delhi, Mumbai, and Kolkata. According to his office, each testing facility is capable of analyzing as many as 10,000 tests a day. Speaking via video conference, Modi claimed India had taken the right decisions at the right time during the pandemic and was in a controlled situation compared to other countries. India's chief medical research agency says the country tested over 500,000 samples for COVID-19 on Sunday. The almost 50,000 new cases reported on Monday brought India's nationwide tally to beyond 1.4 million, representing the world's third highest after the United States and Brazil.
देश के
Millions of citizens of the country have been fighting with the coronavirus pandemic bravely. Today, we are launching a high-tech testing facility. The efforts of West Bengal, Maharashtra, and Uttar Pradesh will be further strengthened in their fight against the corona pandemic. Friends, the right decision we're taking at the right time has resulted in our country being in a far controlled situation compared to other countries. The rate of deaths are far lower in our country compared to many big countries. In January, we had just one center for corona testing, and today 1,300 labs are working around the country. Today in India, we're conducting more than 500,000 tests a day, and efforts are on to take the testing ability to 1 million a day in the next few weeks.
उसी का परिणाम है कि भारत अन्य देशों के मुकाबले
Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta announced the reimposition of COVID-19 restrictions, including a ban on alcohol sales and nationwide curfew starting on Monday.
That there shall be no sale of alcoholic beverages or drinks in eateries and restaurants across the territory of the Republic of Kenya, effective midnight today for the next 30 days. That the closing time for restaurants and eateries has been amended from 8 p.m. to 7 p.m. starting today at midnight for the next 30 days. That all bars shall remain closed until further notice.
More than 80,000 cases of COVID-19 have now been reported across the African continent. According to the information from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the continent has reported a COVID-19 death toll over 17,000. South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Algeria, and Morocco remain the worst hit nations. And China's 16th Peacekeeping Engineering Unit to Sudan's Darfur region held on an oath-taking rally on Monday before their expedition to East Africa to fulfill a 5-month mission. The detachment mainly comprises soldiers selected from an engineering brigade of the 82nd Group Army of the Central Theater Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. The unit has drawn up a disease prevention and control plan based on the COVID-19 situation in the mission area. This is the first time the brigade will conduct a peacekeeping mission abroad. In Iraq, 2 demonstrators died and several dozen were injured during clashes with security forces in Baghdad. Thousands of Iraqis demonstrated in Tahrir Square in downtown Baghdad and other cities across the country to protest against ongoing power outages and corruption. Ali al-Bayari, member of Iraq's High Commission for Human Rights, said that security forces violently attacked protesters who are demanding improved power services. The 2 victims are the first since Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi took office in May, having promised to dialogue with protesters.
They beat us with weapons. They say it's forbidden to kill, arrest, abduct. Nothing is allowed. We stayed for 6 hours with them. They even prevented ambulances from reaching the people who were killed and wounded.
God willing, today, if the youth of the October Revolution do not get released, we will continue, we will keep going, and we will escalate again. Our youth are injured, but we will remain intent and we will not retreat. The ruling of Mustafa al-Kadhimi does not differ from the government of Adel Abdel Mahdi.
And now we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember that you can find this and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net.